with puja, small puja. Perhaps today we might chant the English version of it. Blessed One, the Lord who fully attained perfect enlightenment, to the teaching which he expounded so well, and to the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, to these the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, we render with offerings our rightful homage. It is well for us, then the Blessed One, having attained liberation, still had compassion for later generations. May these simple offerings be accepted for our long-lasting benefit and for the happiness it gives us. The Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed One, I render homage to the Buddha, the blessed One. The teaching so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha. Now let us pay preliminary homage to the Buddha. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened One. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened One. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened One. So those of you who tune into this session frequently recognize that I always begin this with a salutation, chanting, bowing. To me, it is an entry place to the Dhamma. Tonally, the tone is one of dignity, steadiness. It's not heavy, it's gentle, steady. And it goes to that qualities go to the heart. Particularly if you have the opportunity to do it in a group, it's immensely amplifying and sustaining on a heart level. And it reminds us perhaps of timeless qualities, since we are so often involved with time, with the urgencies of the day and the concerns of the present moment, which of course are what we have to deal with. But this sense of lifting your attention to the timeless, very important, very absolutely vital in order to keep the balance and the equanimity and the stability to manage what comes running at us in our daily lives. And certainly when we consider just even the fragmentary qualities that are mentioned, enlightened, compassionate one, the Dhamma, which we apparent here and now, available, accessible, ocean, the Buddha, the knower of the worlds, purity in moral conduct and clarity. And the Sangha, those who have practiced or practicing well with integrity. These are resonances to bring up our sense of respect and rising. We lift up. We're going to meet these qualities. We have to encourage us to lift up, to straighten up, to take the steady, long view. And this is immensely helpful as the introduction to our deepening and silence. Because in a way, the meditation theme is what's happening. For most of us, we can do mindfulness of breathing. That's absolutely great. Mindfulness of body, cultivating metta, but you realize you're actually practicing all those things as tools within the ongoing continuum of what you're experiencing and feeling, which is probably different for each and every one of us, but certainly a mixture of worries, anxieties, joys, expectations, things we feel stumped by and really don't know what to do about. A whole range of stuff, and the sense of, okay, there's all that, without rejecting it or getting swamped in it, and filtering what is appropriate to give attention to and what kind of attention can you give. And this is exactly Buddha Dhamma practice, is what kind of attention you can give and what's worth giving attention to, because there's so much. So as we come into our silence or our personal world as it is that we're experiencing, just this fundamental sense of to meditate means you lift. You've got that sense of the upright, the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, the respect, the timeless, the steady, the stable, that resonance. We keep resounding that resonance when things in us want to just crumple and hide or run away or panic or get excited. Just, okay, that's what happens for people. We're not getting, judgmental about that, but let's just get that perspective, without adding more to it, just that bare perspective, that simplicity. This is what's happening. This is the world. Okay. And so that sense by itself lifts some of our emotional energy from the topics that we're concerned about, from our children, from our partners, from our job, from our body, from the state of the world. Is this? What's happening now? Okay, what's leading? Perhaps it's a sense of uncertainty and agitation, or eagerness and excitement, or restlessness, or even aversion. We lift. That's that lifting. This is the fundamental viveka. Yeah, and it's it's doable. That's why it's called Dhamma. Dhamma is that which you can do. If you can't do it, it isn't Dhamma. And it's a step by step, which means you just take that step. Okay. This is not the final thing. This is not the end of the story, but this is, if you don't take this step, you don't get anywhere. Yeah. And that step. And then the dispassion. Feelings are like this, emotions are like this. And you begin to be able to discern with some practice distinction between the feeling, the meaning, and the activation. Okay. So feeling is just the sheer quality of something pleasant or unpleasant, the immediate contact. Yeah. Yeah. So many of these things just what we hear. We hear news, we hear stories, we hear other people. We get that. Oh yeah, that's bad. Yeah, and then the meaning comes up, which is called sanya, the perception. Oh, this means she's like this. Or this means it will always be like that. Oh, this feels like, and then this kind of, it begins to swell. And then the reactions start. We get the activations. Oh, stop it. What should I do? I can't do this. I must do this. I got to do that. Oh, no, she shouldn't be this way. The world is like this. The world is like that. And it goes on. And we get all kinds of, once that reactivity gets in, everything starts ricocheting. You get reactions to the reactions, counter reactions, trying to shut everything down and so forth. It just goes like a ping pong ball, just bouncing around. So this is no good at all. Everybody's doing that. The world is playing ping pong with bullets and guns. You know, where's the end of that? More suffering. So they just got to stop that. And then just kind of going to your own process and say, taking the time just to listen in deeply. Okay. And listen in deeply by relaxing your body. You shouldn't have to strain. It's not you shouldn't have to strain to listen. You just relax your body. Keep the upright spine steady or standing, and relax the muscles that you don't need. Once you relax the muscles in your face, in your chest, in your fingers, then you start to get the chitta experience, the heart experience. Oh, I feel a bit this, I feel a bit, I feel slightly rocky, I feel something pushing, I feel fluttering. How is that? And then the topics begin to arise. Yeah. Concerns, memories, feelings of regret, feelings of guilt, even, or anxiety. Because in relaxing the muscles, you've relaxed a certain muscle of the heart, which is to defend or shut. The heart begins to open. When it begins to open, it will tell you, it will tell you what's important for you right now, what's bothering you. And as you do so, you keep in touch with that upright sense, which your body still carries that sense. Your embodiment still carries that sense of stability and presence. You don't let go of that, but holding that, you open to what's happening. It's rather as if you're dropping a bucket into a well. The bucket is the heart. You know, you're dropping it into the body's opened up, you can descend, but you have a rope on the end of the bucket. The rope is your upright body. So then you feel that and letting yourself descend into what's being felt. Nothing much is being felt, then you can feel yourself breathing. Stay with that. You don't have to seek problems. Find pleasant, agreeable, supportive states. Let the bucket of your heart widen and open and be filled with them. And to remind you, it is a kind of a descent. The Buddha called it the descent to the deathless. So often we actually are pulling away from that which we're disturbed by. We're struggling with our tension. We're trying to pull away from our fear or agitation. We're trying to keep our sense of problem away from us. We're pulling away. And with this, you actually descend into it. Not into the topic, but into the area of the heart that's affected by that, which can feel quite sore or tired. So you keep that rope, otherwise you just feel yourself getting swamped. Discern the reactions, relax the reactions. And you'll find there's a place where stillness begins to be experienced. Like the bucket is floating. When you find, or when the things settle into some stillness, some sense, this is not jumping up and down, this is not agitating, this is not sinking, and the rope presence is still there. This is when you start to allow yourself to expand your attention. This is where goodwill, compassion, and equanimity begin to blossom. It's a response to our internal condition. This is rebuilding the heart with goodwill. You're taking your time. Once again, you find your body, the simple presence of body. You relax the muscles, the agitations, or the deliberate activities, or the residual tension or hardness in the body. When you soften the muscles and stay present, heart opens. Doesn't pop open, it's most likely to gradually open. First of all, the experience can be rather sleepy or misty or uncertain. You stay with that presence of body. Perhaps with the question, what's important here? What's happening here? And it invites the heart to take form, the heart to present forms, the heart to present mood, topic, theme. This is the concern. This is the regret. This is the excitement. This is the loving kindness. We don't know. Lifting. So they stabilize. Lifting attention, but letting yourself sink into that quality. Lifting from the topics, the ideas, and deepening into the emotional fabric behind them. Come to a place of rest. What seems beautiful, fruitful now. There's a place where we forgive, where we accept how we are, where we bring forth goodwill. This is where these qualities easily come forth. Mm. Those come forth as they are. They're not self, they're just qualities. Mm. They continue to deepen and refresh us.
Brahmacharya dipati sahampati Katanjali anadivarangaya chata Santida sata parajaga jatika Te se tu dhammam anukampiman ajan.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Sometimes people ask me, what I think about the state of the world. I'm going on arms round, people stop me and ask me what I think about the state of the world. Uh, well, yeah, it's. Mm. And do I make any public statements about, the hot spots, Ukraine, Gaza? These are the ones that get the headlines. But if you just scan a little wider, you can see Sudan is also a terrible horror story. Ethiopia has been a civil war. Yemen, Myanmar, you've got a whole civil war brutality. Xinjiang, China, brutalization of the Uyghur minority. I mean, and this is just without really searching. you know, so how much can you take? What do I say? It's bad. Do I think it's good? No, I don't think it's good. It's bad. Uh, and then what? What you can do about it? You know? So I hope people do whatever can be done. Uh, but I also feel personally, you know, I was walking around yesterday. It's quite a beautiful day here, and somebody took me out to show me a piece of local woodland which has got bluebells and these beautiful oilseed rape plants which have a bright yellow. And it's very soft, rolling countryside slopes and nice little old cottages and woodland with bluebells in it. It's quite idyllic. You know, we walk around, and here I'm walking around this, and as I'm walking around, I'm thinking, what must it be like to have a bomb coming over and a big shell landing in that and blowing it up? What must it be like to be living in a situation where the skies flame with missiles? What must it be like if I'm looking at that little cottage and a drone lands on it and blows it to pieces? What would it be like if a whole troop of armed men came rushing over that hillside with machine guns? So yeah, it stays with me. And as I looked at that, I thought, I guess if I was there, I'd be I'd be in that, and I'd be dealing with that. Yeah. And if I was in a position where I could pull a lever and say stop, I'd be doing that. Um, if I was in a place where I could say, please, could you make them stop? And they would listen to me, I'd do that. Yeah. And I hope that all the various protests and petitions and so forth, which I can totally sympathize with and give my yes to, hope they are effective. Yeah. But, you know, this, when you get to the big picture, I'm afraid this is very much part of human nature. This brutality, grasping, grasping at territory, grasping at fear, fear of others, hatred, aversion, all, and it just keeps ricocheting around. And we look in some of the most transformative occasions, you know, where, for example, after the Second World War, when Japan had been aggressive, very aggressive and brutal, the army and so forth, under this kind of crazy nationalism, just as the German um, political machine had got intoxicated with its own nationalism, same kind of disease. And once the mind is intoxicated, there is no evil it will not do. And that was being played out. Once the mind is intoxicated with views and opinions, with mine and theirs, then there is no evil it will not do. Okay, you can say the Germans are bad guys, Japanese are bad guys, but before it was French were bad guys, the British are bad guys. Just pass it around. It's not a national characteristic, it's the nature of human beings, the intoxicated mind. And after the Second World War, then, you know, interesting enough, they were kind of concerned that Japan had been pretty violent to even just make it a subjugated nation, not an independent nation. And whether it should be allowed to be an independent nation because it was completely, you know, surrendered completely, given up completely. So what do we do with it? And I think it was the Prime Minister or President of Sri Lanka who said, you know, because he was a Buddhist, you know, the famous line, hatred is never doesn't stop through hatred, it's only through love. Hatred is ceased. And he felt that the best thing to do was to be more loving, not to take revenge, but just to be more loving, to follow the Dhamma. And so people respected it, said, you know, these people come out of their delusion, come out of their craziness, let's support it. And so Japan was allowed to be an independent nation and has been peaceful, law-abiding, peaceful member of the family of nations ever since. Same with Germany, which you thought after the wars between Germany and France, which have been going on for First World War, Second World War, before that Franco-Prussian War, before that Napoleonic War, before that the Empire, Holy Roman Empire versus the French. It's been going on for 500 years at least, this war between these two political entities. You thought these people, they could never possibly ever have a rapprochement. They're always going to be fighting and hating each other, which is what happened at after the 1918 war. Then the French demanded a lot of reparations, which meant that the Germans felt really they'd been treated very unfairly, and that supported the rise of Hitler. But after this Second World War, they said, let's look, we just got to be friends. Or just, everybody's hurt everybody, everybody's slaughtered everybody, everybody's lost their friends and parents. We've all hurt each other. Now is the time. To get out of this, the only thing we can do is form some kind of union. So we soften the boundary between us. So they started this thing called it's now called the European Union, which of course has its problems, but it doesn't create war, internal war, which has been going on in Europe for 2,000 years at least. It stopped that. So, that's the story, isn't it? At what point does it come available whereby warring nations say, this is enough, we just got to, can we accept the amount of horror that these people have generated for us and say, enough, we're not going to cause revenge. So, my piece as a Buddhist monk, with monks are the people who stand at the edge of the forest. We don't actually go into the city. If you physically go into the city, psychologically we don't go into the city. Physically we go into the city to see people or whatever, but we stay in the heart, we stay in the forest. Yeah. So we're those who try to bring the forest into the city, the qualities of the forest, the shelter, the stability, the naturalness into the city. Yeah. So if you like, we stand at the edge of the village so that people can come and see us, but we don't participate in the political, economic pros and cons. If we look in the life of the Buddha, some of his chief disciples were kings. And kings basically did what kings did, which was they went out and slaughtered other kings. And that was part of the duty of a king, was to have his armies go out and attack the people in the next state. So they were doing this. They were his disciples, and he didn't, he said, okay, didn't approve of it. But at the same time, he'd say, this will not lead to your welfare. And because he didn't have a position they would actually come and seek him out because he was a neutral, open presence. And they say, and rather than dealing with the topical issues, say, well, the topic of the samana is to say, what's happening in your heart? Do you feel frightened? Do you feel angry? Do you feel upset? Do you feel guilty? Do you feel people have done you wrong? Well, this is the same for everybody. Let's deal with it. And in these times, I think, because there is a lot of news and noteworthy and well-meaning organizations who look after, try to give attention to these problems in the world, I think, okay, good, fine, good, may you be well, may they're helpful. I'm going to do this bit, which is trying to retain the light of humanity and also giving people some practical support to deal with the emotional impact of receiving so much shock and horror every day, which I do, and I'm sure you do. So many things we feel shocked, horrified, disappointed by really quite difficult to manage. So this is this itself takes energy. It's the emotional energy that it takes to receive grief, hatred, delusion. To receive it's like being hit, and in order to receive it and stay intact, you have to kind of hold yourself together. And there's an emotional impact that occurs when we receive bad news. And the citta is sensitive. Citta doesn't live inside an individual. The citta is a sensitive experience, and it expands to cover everything it's concerned with. Everything it's concerned with will probably be uncertain and painful to some degree. Therefore, there's going to be the shock. And that shock takes energy. If you get a lot of shock, a lot of energy, and eventually you just shut down. You just feel, and you get a low energy state, feeling hopeless and impotent. And then once you get hopeless and impotent, then you get negative states arise. And you sabotage programs. In other words, when you get a shock and an impact, your energy goes, your sense of solidity, your sense of wholeness and being able to contain things begins to weaken, and then you get kind of distracted, reactive. You lose your balance. When you lose your balance, your poise, your equanimity, your steadiness, then unwholesome states easily take over. And so then unwholesome states will begin to corrode and damage the heart. Right? If you sit with guilt and regret and hatred, it's going to damage your heart. These aren't just thoughts, these are energies that have a corrosive effect on your emotional. If you too much of that, and you just become depressive, emotionally, lack emotional resilience, you lose joy, you lose the qualities that can bring around regeneration. And we are fundamentally emotional beings. We have intellect as an add-on. Before we had intellect, before we could see, before we could hear, before we could smell, before we were born, we were still emotional. We were still able to sense what was going on and respond and feel comfortable or uncomfortable. Even when we were in our mother's wombs, we would feel comfortable, or if the mother was having a bad time, we'd feel very anxious. These aren't formed emotions, these are energetic patterns that run through the heart, and they produce what we call emotions. But these energetic heart energies rush through us. They must do, because that's the way we're built. When you get a lot of shock, grief, hopelessness, rage, despair, regret, that rushes through, those energies rush through the heart, and they are unwholesome. In other words, they begin to mean the heart is like sickened. People die of broken hearts, literally. Depression is a sickness. It's not just a bad mood that comes and goes. It sickens. Loneliness sickens. Depravity sickens. The heart loses its buoyancy and clarity and radiance. To the point in which we forget, we kind of accept that even. We call itself, I am a depressed person. Nobody's a depressed person. There's just depressed states that have caused a sickness of the heart. So receiving all this terrifying and disappointing and whatever news and impact, even just on your personal family level, means you're going to get these heart energies move through you. And they will, if they're not compensating for, if they're not released and the heart isn't regenerated, you get sick. If you get sick, your heart gets sick, you no longer have the capacity to really bring forth the beauty, the power, the strength, the clarity that is part of your natural inheritance as a human being. So we can live in a society of people who are physically safe. They're not being bombed. But they're emotionally sickened. And why? Because this stuff is sickening. There's nothing wrong with them. Disease makes you sick. But the point is that the heart is able to regenerate and clear through Dhamma practice. So I'm saying that's me, it's kind of like my peace. Because if we are strong, if we are capable, if we are loving, if we have the grand heart, my feeling is that really there's nothing we can't accomplish. If that health radiates out, surely this is going to bring around the best that there can be. And the idea is, first of all, that we begin to or enter that process of healing, regeneration, and strengthening, and then we don't create the boundaries between the bad guys and the good guys and those and the shoulds and the shouldn'ts. We just keep that energy moving out. So the sickness is cured. And some places seem to be very sick. Because of that, it's important that we don't get sick. And it's important that their health that is regained can be generated and lived in and radiated. Yeah. And if we create boundaries between them and us, then those boundaries will block the transference of Dhamma, love, sanity, whatever you want to call it, health, basic heart health. Mm-hmm. So as I'm saying, when we cultivate, just looking very simple model, is when we use these kind of foundations like mindfulness of body, basic foundation, why is that always there? Why do I keep saying that time and time again? Because this is the thing that can hold. It doesn't solve anything, but it acts like a firm presence. Now, your heart is something that's kind of very open, expansive, very vulnerable, and very effective. It rises and sinks, it flutters, it shifts, it shakes, it pervades, it contracts, it goes high, it goes low. You want something that doesn't do that, just to act as a basic stabilizer. So then you bring the two together, you see. So if the heart is able to contact that bodily presence, that acts as a kind of an anchor. That's a very important quality. It provides the quality. The heart picks up the sense of this is the stable, this is the exciting, this is the maddening, this is the saddening, this is the stable. Okay. This is the painful, this is the problematic, this is the uncertain, this is the stable. Well, okay. Keep all of it there. And depending on how difficult the emotion is, you might need to go much more to the stable because it's really difficult to hold. So I need to hold stability very steadily in order to just be present with this emotional stuff, this heart stuff. Now, though I said, citta occurs before sight, sound, touch, and so forth, what we call the senses, this internal bodily sense, the sense of bodily presence, is fundamental to birth. When the citta comes into birth, it comes into an animated form. It's a different, tiny little cell. That's the body. That cell changes, becomes this incredibly complicated cellular form. It's, as far as the citta goes, it's the same thing. Citta doesn't do eyes and hair and teeth. It just does embodiment. Embodiment is embodiment whether you've got one leg, two legs, or no leg, is still embodied. Whether you lose a hand, go bald, go blind, you're still embodied. So this embodiment sense is prior to any sensory apparatus gets added to it. Yeah. So the citta can recognize that. It's kind of its first guideline, holding that steady. And then we can allow the felt senses to arise. And it's rather like, I'm using this image, the steady being like the rope on the bucket. When you descend into the well, you don't just chuck the bucket down the well, say, oh, feel what I feel. Feeling's good for, just be with the feeling. No, you say, you lower the bucket on a rope to say, okay, this much, I can feel this much. I'm still got the rope, still there. How is that? Okay. Can I stay steady? And can I, if the bucket's going upside down, it's time to pull up. So you keep the rope, so it's not just a bit too much right now, and then descending, and then okay. And then if we can get that, the citta acquires a great sense of confidence, as if you're nursing a young child, you're trying to get them to swim. So I think some of our parents might have said, okay, get on my back, put your arms around my neck, and I'll go into the water, and you just hold on to me, and I'll swim while the little kid is on the back, till you get confident, because you're with me. And then gradually you can feel, you get used to being in the water with your mother or your father, and you can say, I'll just, you can let them go. But so the body acts like that. So the citta can rest on the body as it goes into these very watery states, fluid states, feeling and sense. And okay, there's that. Yeah. And we don't let go of that embodiment. Nor do we just only focus on that. We hold that in order to feel what's being felt. Now, this process will actually by itself allow the citta to come to a stability, and where its reactions and its fear and its agitation ceases. And it feels steady. Suddenly, we've actually found there is a water we can float in. And that's obviously for our own welfare. We feel comfortable. It's for the welfare of others, because from this state, I will not be producing reactions of righteousness, hatred, violence, nor will I be producing feelings of fear, dismay, disappointment. My heart will be steady. Therefore, what arises from it will be just, truthful, sagacious, loving, compassionate, equanimous, for the welfare of others. And this is the way, and okay. So, and of course, the thing is that it can be just the health of your dog that's causing it. It's not necessarily some big global paradigm. It's just the fact your dog is dying can be extremely, difficult to manage. So this covers it all, really. And if we can gain that robustness, certain other things become possible. We're no longer so interested in shaking our fists and rights and wrongs. We feel those as distasteful. We're also no longer interested in consumerism. We find it pointless and silly. We're no longer distracting ourselves or going into alcohol because we find that sickening. And so the overall health of the individual is going to lead to health in the social fabric. Yeah. And this is all that can be done. Yeah. Because if the social fabric is healthy, the likelihood is the leaders are going to be healthy, because the leaders have to arise from the social fabric that supports or allows them to be in that position. So this is the long story, but it happens to be the one that works, because the rest of them seem to be, oh yes, we've solved it, until the defeated fight back, or the next war starts, the next war starts, the next conflict starts. Mm. Mm. But this is something you can do with even the problems with your next door neighbor, or you're having concerns over your teenage daughter, or your son's doing some crazy stuff. You use the same model to bring around your own health, for your own welfare, for the welfare of others. And it's a long picture, a long story, a long process that we do. We don't believe it's suddenly going to be a push a button, everything's going to get fixed. But this is a process that makes us strong, capable, rich, and deep. And this is what our life is for. And if we just can come through this human life stronger, more resilient, more endowed, and we've done some good, this is what we have the capacity to do. And we should not allow ourselves to be sickened and damaged by the craziness that we see around us. So for your reflection today.
Andamayam Dhammakataya Sadhu Karang Dadamase Sadhu 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 Anumodam.
So going to some of you, it's rather late in the evening. Some of you, it's maybe time for breakfast, or I don't know. But I'll close the session now. Please, if you have any questions or queries, put them in. You can sign up to Dhamma tracks. You can post them there, and I'll try to provide an occasion to review anything that's been brought to my attention. But I'm respectful of the attention of the group and respectful of the attention of the host, who's carrying this for all of us. So we've had our hour of meeting. Now's the time to digest and consider what's been presented and make use of it. The Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed one, I render homage to the Buddha, the blessed one. The teaching so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha. So once again, gratitude to Vita hosting this session, and thank you for turning up, and I hope something's been useful. Take care.